All right, presented by Litify. I'm Bill Biggs, and this is Transforming the Culture of Law. This is our second episode of Transforming the Culture of Law. Folks, today we have one of the absolute powerhouses in the legal industry. I think you're going to love it. Sam Pond is one of the founders of Pond, Lehocky, Giordano, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, one of the most successful and influential firms in America. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Sam over the last few weeks and months, and he's made me a better leader. He's made me a better man every moment that I've spent with him. So, Sam, what an incredible honor it is to have you with us on Transforming the Culture of Law. Thanks so much for investing a few moments, especially while you're with us from the Cayman Islands. Sam, it does look like you got a little bit of a tan there, buddy.
Well, I'm working on it, but they keep me busy down here, so I'm still in the condo here, Bill, doing some work each and every day. Had clients all day, but I really want to have you. I really want to thank you for having me on one of your first shows in regard to this podcast. This is going to be a game changer. I mean, really, in the business of law, having you do these podcasts is going to change lives. It really is going to change. When I say change lives, I'm not only talking about folks that practice law. I want to talk about the people that they represent, because you're going to make everybody better. The first time that I heard you speak at LitiQuest, it doesn't happen too often. It was like eureka. I found the genuine, authentic person here. They are the real deal and making a difference. And it hit me on a cellular level. It really hit me on a cellular level. So I couldn't wait to talk to you. And ever since, we've been sharing ideas. We've been sharing discussions about culture. We've been sharing discussions about teams, about life, about our country. And again, congratulations on this. And I'm so happy for you, but I'm more happy for the people that are going to be listening and watching these podcasts.
Sam, this is what I mean, man. You elevate everyone around you, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that about you so much. Thank you for those very, very kind words. Hey, you are the absolute perfect person to unpack this topic today. We're talking about the life of the leader and the impact of extreme ambition, extreme drive, and how that influences success. And then this thing called the infinite game. Sam, some law firm owners and leaders are some of the most ambitious and driven people in the world. And I would venture to say that you are no exception to that rule. You're a shining example of that reality. Talk to us about your ambition, your drive, and how big a role it plays in your identity.
Well, it clearly plays a role in my identity because it's kind of where I came from. I think that, I recently had played The Impossible Dream by Andy Williams that no one really listens to. But, I had the American dream, the American ideal driven into me that I could do anything I wanted. And I was, I think, just by nature, somewhat ambitious. And that allowed me to just say, well, what can be done next? How to do things better. I don't like losing. How can we model something that's just going to be a little bit better in its delivery of service? Or what am I going to do to get another paper route? Or whatever this situation was. I think that's always been in my DNA. And it's about how you corral that and what you do with it. But it's been there from a very, very early age for me in regard to having that ambition, that drive, being hungry, not being greedy with my time or my resources or money, but being hungry about getting at life and allowing us in the land of the rule of law called America that we can pretty much dream whatever we want to dream and nothing's impossible.
That's amazing. Sam, so much of what you're saying very likely resonates with 90, 95, maybe 100% of the folks who'll be listening, law firm leaders, owners, COOs, mid-level leaders. Where does this come from? Do you think you say DNA, do you think it's a part of just how you're wired, or was it ingrained in you from your family? Was it your generation? What do you think it's all about? Where's it come from?
Yeah, look, I grew up with, the greatest generation as our parents and our elders. our parents fought in World War II. They grew up in the Depression. They knew hard times, but they knew that they still wanted to have the ability to get out and have a hope for the next generation. And that was really, really drilled into me at the dinner table. But I also think both of my parents, in different ways, both of them told me that, you can have whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of gifts, and you've got to use them. They weren't created by Sam Pond, but my mother told me and told everyone in the neighborhood that they could do anything they wanted. It was about believing. And, having that drilled into your consciousness, but also your subconscious, it almost becomes to a certain extent a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
And then when I was very young, I grew up in a Philadelphia neighborhood. My father put me in a car at 13 and took me out to the Philadelphia main line where there was a lot of wealthy people. And he said, look, if you want to have this and be able to have the independence and whatever that may, putting money in material things in its place, but you can go ahead and get whatever you want. But, look, you suffer some bumps along the road and you hopefully learn from them. But I was taught a lot of great lessons, thankfully.
That's amazing. When you say that, talk about it was ingrained into you, right? The three things that come to mind for me that are extremely powerful: belief, confidence, and then having actual opportunity. Everybody in the world has some type of opportunity, but in America, we have enormous opportunity. So if you combine that legitimate opportunity with belief and confidence that you can do anything you want to do, that's a powerful equation. And a lot can come from that. You obviously are a example of that. Your drive and your ambition starts when you're young. Your parents reinforce it. Your dad's strategic. A lot of things happen. And so you become more and more successful. Now, at this point in your life, you've built one of the best firms in America. You continue to build it. It continues to grow. And so many people have benefited from your vision and your ambition. Did you know you were going to be this successful? Did you know something like this was going to happen?
It's a question that I often get, and I'm not quite sure what successful is. People tell me I'm successful, but in regard to where I'm at in my life and almost the entire time through my life, I always knew I was going to be there. There was never any doubt that I wasn't going to be where I'm at right now. My wife says, I want to pinch myself because of this or that. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful, but it was almost put into my subconscious that it was almost like I was driving a car. You don't think about driving a car, right? I mean, God forbid, if a truck runs in front of you, then you have your adrenaline, you become more conscious mind. But for me, it was almost like on subconscious that I was going to be there. There was an underlying, I'm assuming it's from my parents, there was an underlying belief that what I was going to do was there. I think, though, and this may sound a little silly, and people may take this the wrong way, I'm not quite sure I'm quite where I want to be successful-wise. In other words, what is success? Is it helping people? Is it being a professional? Is it making money? Is it being involved in policy for our country? I think I'm successful in that I have the opportunity to do all those things. Therefore, I'm successful because I've had the opportunity, because I've been told what you said before. Everybody ought to be told what you just said. Doesn't matter about your creed. Doesn't matter about your where you came from, the color of your skin. What you said earlier about believing, opportunity, and action. Everyone has that. Everyone in America, and we all ought to believe in it. Because then no matter all the things that come upon us, and sometimes we talked about it at dinner. Sometimes I think maybe I'm overachieving because I feel like I'm still inferior, that I'm not good enough. Right. And maybe it's because of where I came from socioeconomically, because now I'm with people that have all successes. But maybe I still have that kind of edge of not being maybe insecure and not really confident because Sam Pond's not confident. No, I'm a human being, but I have to understand me. And I'll tell you, that makes me healthy, and that makes me reflective, and that gives me time to say, how am I going to be better? That's a long-winded answer about what is success. But real success, I think, is having joy in your work, having a good team where there's great chemistry and you have some laughs and you're doing things and you're getting up and getting at it every day, to me, Bill, that's successful. Tomorrow, I'm successful today because I was talking to clients. I'm on your show, and you know what? I'm looking forward to tomorrow because tomorrow I do it again.
Yeah, love it. Sam, I am so glad, man, and I appreciate you so much. I shouldn't be surprised, but the fact that you brought up something that not a lot of leaders would, especially high drive leaders, and that's that some of this in us is probably driven by some insecurity, right? I mean, we're constantly striving, we want more, and maybe some of that's because we feel a lack somewhere. We feel a little bit of deficit. But I love what you said. Maybe that's okay.
But that's right. We just said the same
right.
thing. That's okay because you know what? You're a human. That's the human condition.
That's right. And if properly understood, maybe it can also lead to that balance, what I like to call confident humility, right? Where, yeah, I believe I can do anything. Give me a task, I'll complete it. But at the same time, I also believe that I'm always in need of learning, that there's always going to be somebody out there that's farther along, and that there's nobody that I'm better than, right? That this isn't about better and worse. It's about being the best that I can be. That balance of confidence and humility is powerful. And I think insecurity at times, while it can be paralyzing and damaging, toxic to people, I think a little bit is good because it gives you this sense of humility that, hey, you haven't reached the pinnacle yet. You need to still grow. You need to still learn. I think the greatest leaders, the greatest champions, the greatest athletes, they're confident, but they also know somebody may be out there working harder than they are, and they want to get after it.
Right. And that emotional condition, though, also allows you to be empathetic, compassionate, a listener. As a leader, we can talk about addressing our emotional makeup and inspiring people to say, I had that trouble. I ran into that, but I overcame it. And maybe that's still lagging, but I'm dealing with it. And I'm no different than you. I'm the same as you. I may have certain things because of maybe I feel like I have the ability to lead. But also as a leader, also being on an emotional level, not allowing your ego. We talk about ego in a lot of ways, but I often look at people and they have this inability to really recognize that maybe I made a mistake. Bill, I've made so many mistakes that I can't count that high. But It's liberating to say I was wrong and I made a mistake. That's liberating. And by the way, that's respectful. That's respectful to the team.
That's right.
And everyone else, that honor them and recognize that this leader is going to get better and make better decisions. But I'm not infallible. I'm a human being.
That's right. And it gives them, in the right context, it also gives them the safety to understand they can fail and still be a part of the team.
That doesn't mean that we don't demand excellence from ourselves and others.
Absolutely. But when they know that there is some space to risk, there's some space to try and be the absolute best, which is at times going to result in failing, right? That creates this environment where people aren't afraid to extend themselves. And I think that's where you actually find the excellence, right? People who stay safe at all times and play the safe card at all times never find greatness. You've got to be willing to risk if you're going to find greatness, and you won't risk unless you feel like you're in a somewhat safe environment where you're allowed to fail a little bit, right?
Yeah, and it's okay. And you know what? You're right. You don't go climb to the next level of enhancing your view of the world and your feel of the world unless you're going to take risk. I had left my last law firm that I built up after 23 years at 51. Left everything. Started over at 51. And it was a scary time, and people followed me. And I had to step up to it. But you know what? I knew I had to do it. I had no other choice. I had to do it. I had to move forward. I had to move ahead. Right. And I had the risk. But you know what? It is what it is. And when you put risk in perspective, we're not fighting in Kiev right now. When we start putting things, that's the other thing, perspective.
Absolutely. Such good stuff here, Sam. So obviously, ambition, drive has built a lot for you. You've harnessed it to become successful in many ways by probably anybody's standard or definition. But let's talk about the flip side, because I think this is an important part of leadership and kind of knowing ourselves. Has your ambition ever been a liability? Has this extreme drive ever cost you in ways that you look back and say, I kind of regret that?
I think in regard to some relationships, your ambition can um, take time, and it can take time from family. It can take time from friends. It can also, when you're so hell bent on moving forward and making something better, that sometimes you might step on some people's hearts and minds that were really, you should have been a little bit more mindful of them. I've been very blessed. I've been married for almost 40 years. I'm married to my first grade sweetheart. So, and I've got a great son. Somehow they've survived in having me deal with this jealous mistress called the profession of law.
Right.
Um, and but there's some things in your ambition that can get in your way, and I think you've got to be very mindful of that in taking you to a wrong way and being exposed to something that doesn't feel right. You've really got to go back to your gut and your instincts, listen to that. Doesn't feel right, doesn't pass the golden rule, whatever it may be. You've got to be more mindful of. But I think to answer your question, sometimes I haven't been more mindful of people's feelings, where
Yeah.
I could have done that and I could have maybe communicated it better because I was just so moving forward that I should have stopped and communicated sometimes better. But
Sure.
beyond that, the carnage is not carnage in regard to my ambition. Thank God.
No, that's a blessing. I've seen it turn out differently in some lives. Sam, let's shift a little bit to really getting into this idea of leadership in the law firm perspective, in that law firm space. I want to talk about the relationship between this high drive, high ambition, and how it manifests often as a need for ultra control. I've seen firms across the country. I've experienced this myself. I think most every leader is to some degree a control freak. But in firms across the country, driven men and women, partners, COOs, owners, and they drive this thing as a force of personality, particularly owners when they start their firms. Then at about 25 to 35 people, and it's amazing how consistent that number is, firm to firm to firm, experience to experience to experience. They reach about 25 to 35 people. They're a driven leader. They're controlling the whole thing. But at that point, it's hard to control the activities, the daily activities of 25, 35 people just with your force of personality. And things get squirrely, it gets chaotic. And the leader usually has a make or break moment where they have to decide if they can give up this breadth of control and actually bring up and trust other leaders. It's kind of the dreaded delegation decision. Have you experienced it? Did you experience it in the firms that you've created? And talk about what it means to be a high drive leader in a firm now that's had over 200 people.
Well, look, I'm probably the opposite, and I often say that I'm the greatest delegator because I'm probably the most lazy man in the world, so I can let someone else do it. In all honesty, I haven't had that problem. I think where I come in and I put my nose in is constantly on quality control in regard to the client service, in regard to our litigation skills to make I'm very strategic, but I'm also, people say you're strategic, but you worry about all the little things. I worry about the little things in regard to this enterprise performing at a very high level and understanding the client experience. But in regard to delegation, Bill, it's one of my great assets because I probably, if anything, I probably delegate to a fault because sometimes I make a sergeant a colonel. And he was a really good sergeant, or she was a really good lieutenant, and I decided to make her a general. She's not a general. It becomes the Peter principle that you just had put someone that was a really good NCO or a sergeant, and you made them now a colonel, and they're way over their head, and they're going to have a problem. It's not good for them. It's not good for the enterprise. So, if anything, I've been too believing in people's capabilities that they can do anything. It was really somewhat naive. I just thought everyone could do what you do. I thought everyone was a Bill Biggs. Not that now I know they're not because
You'd be in trouble.
Right. But so I've actually probably over delegated. I think at my age and where I'm at in the career, and I'm still very much in the trenches, but I've got to start thinking now about succession.
Sure.
My father always had something. We would watch baseball players, and he'd say, boy, I wish he would have hung up his spikes 2 years ago. He's not contributing. He's living off his laurels and his reputation, but he's not delivering. So I'm very mindful of what am I delivering? Am I still delivering what I need to deliver? And I'm not going to be around forever. So are we putting the pieces into place to have the ship continue to sail the way it needs to sail if I'm not around? And that could be 30 years from now. That could be 40 years from now. That could be 10 years from now. That could be 5 years from now. But that next succession, and those people because you work with them each and every day, and they're great. And in this firm, they're amazing leaders, and I think we need to also plan ahead. So in that regard, I'm giving up control, because when you have too much control, it's about really insecurity, right? And then it really is. Here's the duty we have as leaders. What's our responsibility when someone becomes president of the trial lawyers? They say to me, "What should I do?" And I said, "You do what's good for the members. You do what's good for the members. That's your focus." So as a leader of Pond Lehocky, I've got to do what's good for Pond Lehocky, its clients and employees. It doesn't get more complicated. So we have to be able to make sure the ship continues to sail and it keeps on sailing, even if I'm not at the helm.
That's right. Sam, I want to turn back inward again. As you just said, trying to help the people who are listening, help the people that you're serving. And for this podcast, trying to help grow leaders that are also serving their teams. So I think this next topic, and we'll close up on this topic, is one that is really impactful in the life of most leaders, and something that you and I had a conversation with at dinner about. I ended up talking to several of the leaders about this. Brian Lebovic, a good friend, mentioned it to him. It really resonated with him. And here's what it is. High ambition leaders, we tend to set goals. We're very goal driven. We say, I want to make this much money, or I want to create a firm this big, or I want to reach this level. And then we get there. We usually hit our goals. And then when we do, we find out, well, wait, I'm not as satisfied. It wasn't the magic sauce. It wasn't the thing that gave me this satisfaction that I thought it would give me. We hit the goal, but then we find out that the goal and hitting the goal wasn't as satisfying as we thought, which can be extremely discouraging, because over time you say, well, then what am I looking for? What is satisfying to me? Have you experienced that? Have you been a goal-driven guy who reaches his goals and then says, wait a second, that wasn't as satisfying. I'm on to the next thing.
I don't know if I've necessarily been a crossing a goal line type of guy. In other words, I didn't want to necessarily get to the end zone and then I felt that I thought I was going to be satisfied. If I have a goal of reducing a margin or increasing a margin or increasing a debt, they're like tactical, strategic goals that I go, but I end. But in regard to the law firm, I've never really been a guy that I thought there was an end point. I never have. It's not me. I mean, I wanted to accomplish certain things where I wanted to put out something in the universe. I wanted to put things in people's mind about getting to a certain, how many clients, what are the goals? When you really start thinking about goals, what does that mean? I mean, does you get a certain profit? What does that mean? Does that mean like I'm done? So to answer your question, I really have never been too goal oriented. What my philosophy has been is to get up in the morning and give it my best shot. Show up, give it my best shot. Doesn't mean, Bill, that I don't have projections and we don't have metrics. And I understand that because I have to pay payroll and I have to deliver litigation costs and we have to represent our clients at the very highest level with all the resources that Pond Lehocky has, and we have to be involved politically and we have to protect civil justice. I understand all that. But for me, I knew when I would play ball in my neighborhood, when at the end of the day, I thought I did a good job or whatever. I just wanted to get out there the next day and play ball again. I just wanted to show up and play. We were in Rayos with the team up in New York City, the iconic Rayos. And I said to Tom Giordano and Sean Lehocky and Jerry Lehocky, I said, I just want to be in the game. Mm-hmm. I just want to play. I just, just give me the opportunity to have the joy of playing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And I'll learn along the way and hopefully I'll get better and make some difference, but we're just going to keep going. Wow. So I've never really been a goalpost like endpoint guy.
Well, I love that, Sam. You're farther ahead than most of us, but what you're talking about is exactly where I was actually going. But I have been, and I think there are a lot of guys out there that have been the goal guy. You know, I thought if I got here that I would be happy. I get there, I still want more. I get to the next, I still want more, and it feels like that ambition keeps pushing and pushing. Simon Sinek has written a phenomenal book called The Infinite Game, and that's how we'll close up today a little bit on this idea. It seems like you've already got it. You already have the concept. But what he ultimately is getting at is that, you know, reaching goals is really just playing in a finite game, right? Playing a game of baseball, playing a game of football, whatever. It's a finite game. And it feels good to win. It feels good to reach that goal. But for a highly driven person, the problem is they're never satisfied with one game. And when the game is over, they may want a little bit of a break, but they want to get out and play again, right? Exactly what you said. They want to wake up the next day and play again. And for me, Sam, and I think for a lot of leaders out there, I think this can be an extremely liberating and freeing idea and concept that we may not be satisfied necessarily with some certain goal, but the goal can't be a goal, right? It can't be just this finite thing, a certain amount of money or a certain number of offices or a certain size of firm or whatever. Maybe the goal should be to wake up, like you said, to wake up every day and to play the game to the absolute best of your ability, to enjoy it. I tell my kids all the time, my two boys, what I want you to do is live up to your potential, whatever that is. Just live up to your potential. And that's it, man. I think waking up every day to play the game is the win. That's the win.
Bill, the infinite game is a great term. I love it. First time I'm hearing it, but I really love the term, and that's exactly what this is. You know, when you think about it, think about being, and I don't mean to be gender focused, and we can talk about whatever the gender is, but for me, you know, I'm happy in the game. I got a ball in my hand. I'm literally with my team. Think about hanging out with Sean Lehocky, Tom Giordano, Jerry Lehocky, and just bringing it every day, showing up in the ring, being happy with the camaraderie of the team and our other lawyers and training them, and meeting clients in my Northeast office, showing up every day and having that experience. Where else? What is that? What is the goal? To do my best that day, and I'll let the chips fall where they may, and let me show up tomorrow to do it again, and I'll be happy because my cells will be singing, and I'll have a load of energy, and I'll be living life to its fullest. And that's all I ask for.
That's it. I love it. I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a seemingly infinite drive or ambition, if it's in you, if it feels like it's never going to run out, which I think a lot of us feel that can only be satisfied by playing an infinite game. And that kind of truth is.
Think about that. Think about that. How when you have that kind of cellular charge, when you're actually with the team and there's great chemistry. Look, there's teams that have the best players, but the chemistry sucks, and that goes back to culture, right? Yeah. And that goes back to coaching. Okay. And there's teams that have mediocre players that go to the Final Four. All right. Because of coaching and because of belief and because they're happy, the chemistry's there, they're joking with one another, and then they perform. Think about a law firm that has all those ingredients and what they're going to deliver against the opponents and representing our clients. We are going to kill it for people that are in need.
That's right.
And I tell you what, do
this. Right? Amazing. That kind of truth is liberating. And it's not just about the joy of hitting some goal. It's really about the joy of playing the game every day, building our firms.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll finish with this, what I tell the lawyers. Don't worry about the money. Show up and do your best professional work, and the money will take it. That's nothing. That's a side. But think about being happy every day and what we do. Think about having the time that we spend with you in regard to the difference that you're making. And again, I'm going to end with where I started off at. This podcast and what you're doing, the change that you're going to bring, the inspiration and allowing people to aspire to just make a difference and get to the very essence of what they do in our profession is I'm so happy and grateful and honored to be on the show. Really am.
Well, Sam, you've been an absolute joy. Thank you again for those kind words. Can we have you back? Will you come back
Of
and talk
course.
some more?
Love to.
Uh, we would definitely appreciate that. And I can tell you this: you have been one of our best guests ever so far, Sam. You and Terry Dorman have been the best guests we've ever had.
Okay. Well, at least I can play in the game. It's the infinite game. As
You
long as
get
I
to
can
play the
show
game one more day. One more day. All right, folks. Thank you for turning in to Transforming the Culture of Law. Thank you, Sam Pond, for being our guest today. And what a phenomenal conversation. Next week, or next episode, I can't guarantee it'll be in a week, but our next episode, you don't want to miss this. Rick Harris, we're going from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. Rick Harris has built one of the most impressive firms in all of America. He basically owns Nevada, and yet he's one of the most unassuming, kind guys that you've ever met. And he, in his own powerful way, is a powerhouse, just like Sam Pond. And he's got years of wisdom and insight into what it means to lead a firm and grow a firm. You don't want to miss our next episode with Rick Harris from the Richard Harris Law Firm. All right, Sam, thank you very much. We're going to do this again soon. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. Subscribe to Transforming the Culture of Law on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at litify.com/culture of law. We'll see you next time.